I have not been looking forward to this one. What's up, you guys? Welcome back. I don't remember the last time I actually sat down and did a life update video, except honestly all of my vlogs feel like sit down videos in a sense because it's literally me talking in my apartment. But this one's on my bed, so you know we're getting serious. Definitely have some life updates to run through. Haven't really known how I wanted to talk about some of it or how much I wanted to share, but we'll get to that. I did ask for questions on Instagram. This isn't gonna be a full-on Q&A because I did want to mostly just like talk about my life updates, but I thought it might be nice to kind of incorporate it in a Q&A style. So if you guys had particular questions about certain things, or just other things too, just to give me a little bit of structure so I wasn't just like blabbing and ranting. So if you don't already follow me on Instagram, at Kristee. There were so many nice things that people even said in the question box and things that I think are fun to answer. So I might start with a couple like lighter cues and then we'll get into some of the heavy hitting topics. Someone says, just want to say I love your content and the right job is coming for you if it hasn't yet. Thank you. That's not a question, but I will kind of address it just in the sense of giving updates since my videos are a little bit behind. The one that I uploaded with the interview was up to date just because I filmed the second part more in real time. So the update there is, and this is like what I've talked about most in my recent vlogs. So the job searching process, I don't know why, it just feels like I started up here and now I feel like I'm down here with my confidence as far as job searching. But it is so discouraging when like you just like get rejected time and time again for things that you feel like you would be so good at. Like the last thing that I was interviewing for, I didn't get. And so now I'm like waiting to hear back for something that I've sent out applications for. And even the ones that I have still out that I haven't heard from, I'm not even that excited about the role. It's just like a tough spot to be in. So I'm trying to put myself in the mindset. It's all about your perspective, right? Like you can't change your situation. You can only change how you look at it. So I'm trying to be positive. I just feel like I've kind of fallen into old patterns of like finding self-worth in, you know, professional success, and that's really like not the case. That was a big lesson from the pandemic that so many people, including myself, took, was that, you know, you're so much more than just your job. And trying to preemptively catch myself in those thought patterns and remind myself that like it's not the end of the world. Something is coming, I have to be patient, and it will work out, and I will look back at this time in a few months, hopefully, I'm not gonna and be grateful for, you know, the road that brought me there. But I am just like feeling a little discouraged with it. So if you're in the same process, like hopefully this makes you feel less alone. Have to be patient. So that's where we're at. Every time I do a Q&A, I feel like the most asked thing besides like my dating life is about moving and where I'd want to live and like why, or like how long I see myself in New York. I feel like I've answered this pretty similarly for the past couple years since I moved here, and the answer was like, I love New York. I don't see myself leaving in the next couple years. I mean, I've kind of like teetered a little bit on it, but generally I feel like I've been in the camp of I have so much more life to live in New York and I don't have a plan for when I am going to leave. I've actually been thinking that I feel like I'm more open to the idea of living somewhere else now. And maybe it's because I hit the 3-year mark, and in those 3 years I spent a good chunk of it outside of the city. Because in the past it's been like every 2 years I've gotten a little antsy about wanting to live somewhere else. And this time after 2 years plus I was like, oh, I don't feel that, like I love New York. But now I feel like it's catching up to the time I spent away. And now I'm kind of getting there again where I'm like, would it be better if I lived somewhere else? In response to a particular question about would you leave New York for a job, I don't want to say no, honestly, but I feel like if I had the opportunity to do something like abroad or in a different country that fit right, I think I would go for it. But I feel like it would take a lot for me to leave New York at this point, but I'm not like closing the door on that. Plus I have this lease here until January, so that's a component. I've been having more thoughts about like, well, what if a different place or, you know, gaining experience living in a different kind of environment would be beneficial. So I don't know, maybe those are just doubts that are coming with the general like uncertainty of my life shifting. Are you close or friends with any other New York City influencers? I definitely would say I'm like friendly with some influencers in New York, but I don't like hang out with any on a regular basis. All of my close friends and like people that I spend time with most are friends from just like random places, like not internet friends. I don't even consider myself that much of an influencer. I don't even think I influence that many people, and I'm not like good at it or consistent with social media anymore. Like it's not as central in my life as it has been in the past, which I don't think is a bad thing. It's just like the natural order of things and changing and growing up and everything. I would say I just like don't really feel like I'm a part of an influencer community in New York. I don't really go to events or like engage much, and that's on me. That's not like, oh, people are, you know, exclusive or whatever. Like that's not the case at all. And again, like I know people in the city who do social media, but yes, I still have friends that are influencers, and like I love, you know, when I get to catch up with them, but they're not like my closest friends. Do you ever get asked about your social media presence in non-social media job interviews? Honestly, it's never really been an issue or like something that's come up that much for me. Off the bat, I will say no, I don't really get asked about my social presence, just because I think that social media is just such a huge part of the world now that I don't think it's like work can't really have an opinion about what you do outside of work. Like they can't just tell everyone not to have a Twitter account or something. Like it's just, unless you're obviously like infringing on the company's, you know, any sort of guidelines. I don't think it's that relevant. I have in the past, like when I worked at UNICEF, I put social media work on my resume because it was a communications role. So I think it sometimes does apply in some like overlapping ways, but more recently it hasn't really been relevant to what I'm doing for work, so I don't really bring it up. But at the same time, if I was asked about it, like I wouldn't try and deflect it or hide it or anything. Like I don't think that I do anything wrong, and I'm very careful about like what I share and what I talk about online, so I don't really think it's an issue. Favorite Love Island couple? Definitely Ekin and Davide, 100%. Like I don't think this is a spoiler anymore because now in the US we could even see the finale, but I'm so glad that they won this season, and I just freaking love watching Love Island UK. I think that they brought the right amount of drama, and their personalities were just like chef's kiss. So happy for them. How's your self-improvement / vulnerability journey going? If you guys remember, I kind of opened up about this more in my videos like at the beginning of the year when I was getting back into YouTube after like a little bit of a hiatus. And I talked about how in therapy, like something that I really was trying to work on was being more comfortable with being vulnerable and putting myself, like challenging myself more to kind of be able to open up to people, because I do by nature just like keep a lot to myself and try and go like process things by myself and not let other people into things. I will say I feel like I definitely was going through a lot more of that and like was a lot more, I guess, intentional about it in the winter, like the beginning of the year. And I don't know, I feel like I haven't been like thinking about it as much, but I do think that I've, because of that work that I put in and that growth that I was really uncomfortable with at the time, but like really pushed myself to, you know, do more. I think that now it's just coming a lot more naturally to me. I do think that I've just made a lot of progress, and I am really proud of, you know, where I've been able to grow and what I've been able to do that I wouldn't have in the past. And I think that so much of that came to fruition in my relationship. I think I grew a lot, like especially at the beginning of our relationship with my ex-boyfriend. We broke up. That's part of this update video that I've been dreading talking about. Especially at the beginning, like he was very, you know, emotionally available and like receptive to that, and like made me so comfortable to like share things with him that I wouldn't normally, or like I just felt like I didn't have to have the same walls up, so it was really easy to kind of challenge that part of myself. And I feel like I learned so much throughout that. But then as the months went on, I feel like that maybe plateaued a little bit towards the end of the relationship, where I realized that I needed to end it. I think that I had to really challenge myself again to be vulnerable and like share what I was feeling and how his actions and my actions also were like impacting me, and just being like more honest and actually communicating my feelings and like understanding them myself to be able to kind of share that with him and ultimately like break up. Also, the way that it went down was like kind of drawn out in a sense, where I felt like I wanted to end it at one point, and then I had like voiced everything. Ooh, I just saw a strike of lightning. Cue thunder. I think I was a lot more vulnerable in that sense of laying everything out on the table and sitting down with him and being like, hey, this is how what you did here made me feel. This is why that doesn't work for me. And really be like super honest about my feelings and what I needed in the relationship for it to work. And after we had that initial conversation and he was really receptive to that and apologetic and said that he wanted to do better, etc. So I felt like I kind of wanted to give him that another chance to like work through it. Instead of getting better, like it just got worse and showed that he wasn't able to like do that. I intentionally didn't share the relationship. Like I never had him on my social media. He was like in a few stories, but I wouldn't like tag him, or you know, I didn't bring him into my videos or anything, because I really feel like relationships are sacred and there's so much that you like, people always assume so much from seeing like a tiny glimpse of something online. I feel like that warrants me like sharing a little bit more about the breakup in abstract terms, just because like if, you know, he had been in my videos and you know who he was and people like followed him or whatever, I feel like I wouldn't want to share that, because then you know him. But now because it's just like anonymous boyfriend, it's like okay for me to talk about aspects of it and things that I learned from it. Does that make sense? The bottom line in the breakup, someone else asked, because they heard on the podcast, Sierra and I did a podcast episode from Concord, New Hampshire. It was just like a little mini update and talking about our trip. And in that episode, I did share that we broke up. And I feel like, I think I mentioned on that episode that like there were some red flags that I had maybe looked past, and someone asked like, hey, I heard the podcast, what were the red flags that you know, ignored? And I feel like ignored is a strong word, because it wasn't the kind of thing where these red flags popped up at the very beginning and I ignored it and just went on. Like I think it was a great relationship and I learned so much from it, and in the beginning like it was amazing and great. Bottom line, it was just like I didn't think that we were equally invested in the relationship, and I realized at a point that I was giving so much and like he didn't really give in return or show the same interest in my life and interest that I showed in his. And I don't know, like in tiny ways I was able to kind of like look past those earlier on, but then finally it came to fruition at the beginning of the summer when it was like something that I had asked of him and he completely just like didn't show up for me in the way that I needed him to. And I in my opinion was very, you know, that's when we talked through it and I wanted to work through it and like give him the opportunity to do better after fully communicating like how that had made me feel. And then after that it got worse. He wasn't as considerate of my feelings as I was of his, and also I just feel like it wasn't an equal investment in the relationship. He was kind of avoidant of conflict and like conflict averse, and also just like didn't like confrontation at all, and that is opposite of me. Like I understand that not everyone loves confrontation and that's fine, but when you're in a relationship and like something is, you know, making someone upset, like you should want to, you know, make it right. And he just kind of like drew back from that. But also like I'm not completely faultless either, because there were things that I didn't bring up initially, or like I kind of, gaslight is like an intense word, but gaslit myself in my own thoughts of like, well, just like over justifying why he wouldn't do something, or, you know, instead of like bringing it up to him, I would just kind of like find reasons in my mind to dismiss it. And then those little things finally came to fruition in like bigger issues that I was like, okay, well maybe if I had brought this up earlier and actually like didn't deny myself how it made me feel, then it could have been, you know, better if I had communicated that kind of thing. Like that's part of my vulnerability journey too, is just like being honest with myself about my feelings and being able to communicate that to other people. Like I think that's obviously key in a relationship. So I learned a lot about the importance of that and how to do that. There are things that I could have done differently, but ultimately I think it was just a difference of I've done a lot of work on myself in the last year, and like I've grown so much, and I feel like I'm in a good place to give that and bring that to a relationship, and I just don't think that he was quite there in the same way, or at least like for me. It's kind of been like, I won't say on and off, because we never actually like broke up at the beginning of the summer. I was just like thinking that I was going to end it, and then we decided to work through it. So I had kind of like already emotionally withdrawn a little bit at that point, and then when things didn't get better and I realized that it was just not going to, and that I just needed to like let it go, that took a while, and there was like back and forth also. So it was just like kind of, I don't know, I just feel like I've been like back and forth emotionally all summer, and then finally about like a month ago is when I just was like, okay, this isn't going to get anywhere and I need to cut it off. Even though it was my decision and like that's what I knew was the right thing to do for both of us, I just still like, it doesn't make it easy. Anyway, so yeah, breakup. It was literally like around the same time that I was finishing my job. So literally that same week, it was a lot. Like I was going through a lot that week. Now, like looking back, I feel like that's also why am I getting emotional? Maybe because it's an emotional topic. But I kind of feel like going through this breakup has also made my anxieties and, you know, stress around job searching that much more, because I feel like one issue is like making the other harder. Like I think, well, at least I'm telling myself like, well, if I had, you know, a stable relationship to lean on, like I wouldn't be so stressed about the job searching process and I could like confide in him and it would be easier, blah, 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 which might not be the case. But, and then the other part of me is like, well, if I had a stable job where I was like super happy and able to throw myself into work, then it wouldn't be so hard to deal with the breakup and all that kind of thing, where it's like each of those things, you know, at the same time, it's just a lot of change. So that is where we're at. I'm back to being single, my natural habitat. So I am trying to heal and also like focus on myself and think about everything that I learned from that relationship and what I want to bring into my next one. And now I'm just kind of navigating that in-between space of, you know, when I want to put myself out there again. I do think that I want that in the near future, but I don't know if like right now is the right time. We're just focusing on ourselves, job searching, living our best life, establishing healthy habits, getting a more, you know, regular exercise routine, and just like trying to feel my best, like navigating being single again. So yeah, but I did get quite a few questions pertaining to, because a lot of people didn't know that we broke up, since I had only said it like on that podcast episode and not everyone listens to it. But I did get questions about him, like, how did you meet? We met on Hinge. I feel like I might have said that when I first talked about the relationship, but we started talking last fall, so almost a year ago, and we dated for like 8 months. So again, like I feel like that's not that long of a time, but to me, it's like, it feels like that was so normal, and like it's weird to think, I don't know, it just feels forever ago that I was single, even though it wasn't. Oh, this is a really cute question. If you could show your high school self a 1-minute video of your life now, what would you choose? Wow, that's hard. This isn't like my life right now because this happened a year ago, but last year for my birthday, my friends and I in the city rented a boat and we did like a 2-hour sunset cruise around New York Harbor, and we were just blasting music and singing and had these incredible views and just like having the time of our lives. Just like, that was such a good memory. So I think I would show myself like a 1-minute clip of that, like me in New York with my friends, like carefree, celebrating my birthday. Yeah, I think that was a cute memory. Okay, finally I'll end on a work related one, just because that's kind of where I started the video, so we can leave it full circle, since that's kind of like what my vlogs are revolving around these days anyway. But the last one, I actually like this question a lot too. What got you interested in working in the advocacy space? So basically, if you don't know, what I've been doing for the past like couple years essentially is UN advocacy for nonprofits. So I honestly didn't even like know this was a particular job when I was studying. Or what I really like about advocacy is you don't have to be an expert on like any particular, you know, country or conflict or issue area or social issue or whatever. Like, I really like advocacy in the sense of, well, depending on what you're doing it for, but like the nonprofit that I worked for had like several different issue areas that they prioritized and several different countries that they had programs in and worked on. And so I and my coworkers like doing the advocacy for it are more of like the jack of all trades of having, you know, a good understanding of a bunch of different issues and contexts, but then bringing that and elevating those voices of the people who are those, you know, experts in certain countries, elevating their perspectives and bringing them to the UN. So that's what I really like, is like, I love the building relationships aspect of it. I love helping to kind of facilitate dialogue into international spaces and like bringing, you know, activists who are on the ground in countries that we have connections with and partners that we work with as an organization, bringing their perspectives and voices and research to the UN and helping to kind of bridge that gap of bureaucracy, and also just like helping to influence policies that will eventually, you know, affect those people. That's what I really love about it, is it's like not about me or my research or being an expert. It's about being a facilitating, connecting piece for people who are experts. I like building my expertise around like those international forums, or like the UN, for example, and how they operate and how you can best, you know, channel those voices of people who are affected by conflict and who have the firsthand experience and understanding of what their, you know, community actually needs and what they could benefit from a UN policy or, you know, a certain program or funding stream, whatever it is. Like, I think that it's so important that they're the voices that are amplified, and I love being able to contribute to that by, you know, in the small ways that I can, doing advocacy for that. So that's what I really want to continue down, is like working for nonprofits or just other organizations that I really identify with the mission that they work on and like the issues that they have programs catering to. My advocacy work also did like some communications things, which brings in some skills that I had from previous jobs and from social media and all over the place. I always kind of liked understanding a mix of a bunch of different things, so I feel like this is where I've really found what works for me, you know what I mean? And that took a lot of trial and error to get here, and we're still erroring. That is it for this life update Q&A video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it wasn't too much rambling. I also feel like I might have overshared, but again, we'll see what makes it past the cutting room floor. And by cutting room floor, I mean me, myself, and I editing this later. I feel closer to you just after sharing that, and now I can like kind of talk about that more, and I want to like get into that more in my vlogs of just like, you know, the aftermath of dealing with the breakup and what I'm doing for myself moving forward from that, and like what I'm taking with me from that lesson. So thanks for watching. Love you guys so much. My camera's about to cut me off, so I'll see you next time. Subscribe. Bye.